The question was, what's the difference between a solid layer square and a shape layer square? Okay, there's actually a few differences. I showed you quickly this, and I don't want to get too into shape layers right now because I think I have another class dedicated like mostly to shape layers because that's not true. It's just there's a lot to it. But the main difference between a shape layer and a solid layer is the fact that a shape layer can actually contain multiple shapes. Okay, there's more to it than just that. But I showed you guys this before. When I select my shape layer and I start drawing on my shape layer again, and you can't see that because the colors are the same, so I'm just going to go ahead and change that color there. You can notice that I am, oh sorry, you know what I'll do? Instead of a rectangle, I'll do, I'm sorry, instead of a star, I'll do a bunch of rectangles. So you can see that within my shape, I can actually have multiple rectangles. And beyond this, hold on, I'll get to it right there. So this one shape layer here is now containing a bunch of rectangles. It could contain a bunch of circles. It can contain a bunch of stars, squares, whatever. But beyond that, each one of these rectangles within the shape layer has its own transform properties. Okay, look at this. Look at all these transform. This is why I didn't want to get too much into shape layers just yet, because each look how kind of daunting this starts to get. Right, this is a lot. There's a lot. So shape layers have their own individual shapes within them. Okay. Beyond that, let's get rid of these. Shape layers do not. Let's go ahead and create a rectangle. Shape layers will not create a separate layer inside of your projects panel. It won't create. I'm sorry. It won't create another item in your project panel. Okay. Whereas solid layers, if I go ahead and I create a new solid, whatever, yellow is fine, you'll see that it did in fact create another layer inside of your project here. There are a bunch of different differences. There's a bunch of differences between the two. Those are kind of like your big ones, but there's more to it, and I don't really want to get too into it just yet because there is a lot. Let's see what else. A shape layer, check this out. A shape layer is also way more dynamic than a solid layer. So I'll show you this one last difference real quick. Inside of my rectangle, I can go into, let's say, rectangle path, and I can quickly change my size. Look at this, it has its own position too. I can add things like roundness. You can't do that with a solid layer. Okay, so for pure shapes, shape layers are more flexible. Okay, you can do a lot more with them. Beyond that, there's this whole menu within shape layers, this add menu, which again, I'm not going to get into right now because we will talk about all this later on in the class. But all of these things, you can't do this with a solid layer.